In case you missed the incident this week, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently made news again as she was ascending our nation's Capitol steps, and I'd like to hear what you think about it. But first, I'd like to give you my professional analysis and my reaction coming from a communication point of view. That maybe these are things that you may have missed if your area of expertise is elsewhere, okay? So let's all have one more look at the incident itself so that we can all agree on what happened. Take a look at this.
You look very beautiful in that dress. You look very sexy. Look at that booty on AOC. That's my favorite big booty Latina.
What normally happens during an interview? Who do we see interviewing whom? For example, if you just Google AOC and the people who interview her, look at what's going on. First of all, and this is a big first of all, she is the one being interviewed. You don't see her interviewing people. I mean, that would be odd. If I were to see AOC interviewing somebody, it would be somebody that would be on a level to which she aspires to arrive one day. And therefore, she believes that person may have some special knowledge that maybe would benefit her or her constituents. So she should gather that information and share it with them for the purpose of lifting everybody up. But that would be rare, and I have not seen it done. It would be odd to me at this point in her career to watch AOC interview someone else. I would want to watch that interview to see what's going on there. On the other hand, we have Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You're a comedian, you're doing what you do, saying things are actually quite the compliments.
I was complimenting. She's Jenny from the block. I mean, J-Lo is known for her voluptuous derriere, and all I was trying to do is say you look great. I don't know.
She could not possibly be as simple-minded as she appears to be. Therefore, she knows what the rules of engagement are, and she knows that we are judged by the company we keep. Why? Because it's generally a good indication of who we are. So, as she's sitting next to an unemployed clown, and by the way, if you had trouble distinguishing who was Marjorie Taylor Greene, I can understand that. It's difficult to recognize who she is when she's not brandishing a semi-automatic weapon, staring through the crosshairs with a corn on the cob hanging off of her face, spitting tobacco. You know, I can understand. So to recognize her, she's the one in the neon pink cocktail dress in the middle of the day during a professional interview. That's Marge. So I wanted to mention, if you do have a PR representative, fire them.
Very beautiful lady, and I don't mean that anything sexual. I'm just saying, I'm just commenting.
I want you to take this as a master example of the power of human expression when she couldn't help but express her feelings of, oh my God, not even I can listen to this anymore. I think, oh my God, I just think I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I've got to get new friends. And she summed all of that up in this one instant. Watch.
Right. That's how we talk. You're a beautiful lady. You are a very beautiful lady, and I don't mean that anything sexual. I'm just saying, I'm just commenting on your.
Okay, right? Did you see what I mean? In case you missed it, here it is again.
Right. That's how we talk. You're a beautiful lady. You are a very beautiful lady, and I don't mean that anything sexual. I'm just saying, I'm just commenting on your.
And look at this. What she's about to do is she's going to say something, then she's going to stop and correct herself because in that moment in time, what she remembered was, wait, I can't say that because really I'm here to push an agenda that is going to try and oppress people who have a different sexual identity from the one I'm familiar with. So I can't say what I just said, number one. Number two, I have to remember that only men can give us value. Only a man can give us something that's valuable. Therefore, for those two reasons, I'm going to correct what I just said and say something else. So here's how she did it. Watch that.
I think women should be confident, and if a man gives you a compliment, a woman can say thank you.
Did you notice?
If a man gives you a compliment, a woman can say thank you.
You know, when a man gives you a compliment, why else would she stop what she's saying and change direction? Why else? What's the reason? Because those two reasons fit right in to her agenda and explain why she did that. And remember that normally when you find an explanation that explains something that was in question clearly and completely, that's going to be the truthful explanation. The evidence is pointing to what her real agenda is, and I'm going to go with that. Okay, now let's watch him for a moment.
I'm just commenting on your beauty. I don't think that for me, is some sort of negative thing, but they live in a society where compliments are bigotry and based in racism and hate.
Okay, yes, I know. One thing that they were doing just now, in case you didn't know it, they were basically sounding a dog whistle that narcissists, more than anything else, tend to use. And I find it surprising that that's what they chose as their dog whistle, because they were talking about, for example, how, in our culture, you should say thank you to that man. That's what she was saying. They both said it because that's what they do in their culture. What culture is that? What culture does that? And who are you talking to? Who is this we and them? I'm going to guess that there are people who come from wherever you come from. I don't know exactly who she represents. I don't know what clan she's representing. It's not Clan of the Cave Bear, but whoever she's referring to in the South, whoever her district is composed of, I'm guessing that there are people there who would not want to thank somebody for sexually harassing or dehumanizing or objectifying them on the Capitol steps of our nation. I'm going to guess that there are some people there. So I don't know who is that she and he are talking about. But I do know one thing, and that is that he clearly stated, in case there was any question, he clearly stated that he is unable to distinguish or judge or discern which venue is appropriate for that type of talk and which venue isn't. He's not able to discern whether or not that is an appropriate venue to start screaming these sexually charged things at a woman. Because you're admittedly not able to distinguish between those two venues, I'd like to just take a moment to speak to Mrs. What's-Your-Face. And I'm saying this in the way that I'm saying it because I'm not assuming anything, except that wherever you live, if there is a Mrs. What's-Your-Face, it's an area where, unfortunately, forced marriages occur, and a place where there are limited means and therefore limited education. So I'm going to say this clearly and slowly. If there is a Mrs. What's-Your-Face, on behalf of every male in the world that has ever lived, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That said, why is it so important that we are able to distinguish what somebody's really saying from what somebody's saying? One, because many of the people who are watching this today, I get it. All of a sudden, it's as if they went to bed or were in a coma or were in a time warp and they woke up in this Mad Max zombie post-apocalyptic world where all of a sudden they were like thrust into the Hunger Games. And the worst of human nature is celebrated as a valuable commodity. And people now have license to express whatever fool thought they have in their head. They've now been given license and very frequently been encouraged to let it out, let loose, no matter what the venue. So I can understand why Mr. What's-His-Face Clown has trouble distinguishing between different venues. Now, in this Thunderdome, where most of us work these days, people need to know how to gain respect. We don't need to play games, and we don't need to compromise who we are. All we need to know how to do is stand up for ourselves and call people out on their behavior and let them know, hey, I don't play that, and you're not going to get the rewards you're looking for with me. So go down the hallway and find your next victim. I'm not playing. Here's the way you can use a clarifying question at work when you're dealing with passive-aggressive people who are trying to devalue you, discredit you, or somehow take away from your dignity or your reputation. Use a clarifying question. They sound like this. When you say this, are you trying to say that? What we're saying is, here's what you're saying. And it's obviously, many times, a passive-aggressive way to say something nasty to me in front of other people. But you think that you're going to get away with it because it's difficult for most people to address passive-aggressive behavior because that's a lot to unpack in one moment in time and address. And so people tend not to have the right words to do that. When you address your boss or other people who try to test you and see how much you're going to take, your value goes up when you draw the line. That's what happens. So it might be like this. Let's say that your boss says to you,
"Cuz, you're sensitive. Is it your time of the month?"
You might say something like, "John, when you ask me if I'm having my period, it sounds to me like what you're saying is that I am, by nature of being a woman, less mentally stable. Is that what you're saying?" And then, of course, they'll say something like,
"Well, what? No, I was just trying to help.
Well, wait a minute, John. When you say, after asking me if I'm on my period, that you're trying to help me, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, I need help because I'm a woman on her period. Is that what you're suggesting right here in front of my colleagues? Is that what you're suggesting?" Creepy people will be like,
God, I was just joking.
John, when you say that you were just joking, are you saying that I should not take what you say here at work seriously?
Well, I mean...
John, I don't know what you mean. I don't know when you're joking. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't have telepathic powers. I don't have the powers of ESP. I'm not clairvoyant. What I know is what you said. And what you said was, am I on my period? Do I need help? And you were just joking. Now, What I would suggest, John, is that if you think that I am mentally unstable, or that I do need help, or that you're joking, evidently, I'm not picking up what you're putting down. And if you need to explain to me that what you just said was a joke, or if you need to explain to me that what you said is something different from what you meant, what I suggest is that in the future, if you have something to say to me, like you think that I'm mentally unstable because I'm a woman and that I need help, I suggest that when you communicate with me, that you do it in a clear, direct manner. That would better serve you, and it would better serve me. I think that would be best, just as I'm doing with you right now. To avoid any confusion in the future, do you think you could do that? And they'll be like,
Yeah.
thank you. Now, anyone who witnesses that, people might say, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'll be fired. You will? You'll be fired. Why? Because you told your boss that you wanted to communicate in a clear, direct, honest fashion? That's why? If I were talking to Miss Green and I were to ask her this question as I'm asking her when I'm sending her this video that I'm sure she won't respond to. When you say that she should be grateful that that man paid her a compliment on her ass, are you saying that that's where a woman gets her value? But when you say that she should be grateful that as she was performing her sacred duty and ascending those steps, as that man told her that she has a juicy booty, you told her she should be grateful for that. So it sounds like what you're saying is that despite this whole picture of what I just described going on, what you found the most remarkable, therefore you remarked on it, was not what she was doing there. It was her ass. And she should be grateful that you were remarking on it because, in essence, that's the most remarkable thing you saw. That's the most valuable thing you saw. Is that what you're saying? That's what you think? Is that how a woman gets her value? Because that's what that says. And here's why that is so dangerous. When we let people get away with saying things like that, when we let people get away with dehumanizing or marginalizing or devaluing or somehow trying to take people down because their mindset is of lack, and they believe that for themselves to get power or to maintain the last bits of power that they feel slipping through their fingers, they must take that from someone else because there's not enough power to go around. So they feel as though they have to snatch that from somebody else. As Marge, for example, is trying to snatch the spotlight from AOC because she believes in her mind there's not enough to go around. Here's why we have to really be sensitive to that in these times in which we find ourselves. We're waking up these days and people are like, oh my gosh, what's going on? How come half of our population suddenly has fewer rights than they did before I went to sleep? Oh my gosh, how come more and more people every day are being marginalized and they don't have the same rights as they did yesterday and they can't vote like they did yesterday? Why is that happening? Why is our democracy suddenly in peril? Why are people being disenfranchised? Why are people being hunted down and murdered in the streets? Why is this happening? I don't understand. I think I'm a nice person. The people I hang out with tend to be nice people. Why is this happening? How did we get to this point? That's how we get to this point. It has to start somewhere. There has to be a coordinated effort. There has to be. For example, all of these uppity women who are talking about their reproductive rights and the choices that they want to make with their families and their preacher and their doctors. We can't have that happening. So what can we do? That woman over there, she's opposed to our views. She wants to empower herself. There's not enough power to go around. What can we do? Let's burn her. Let's burn her. We can't do that. Okay, let's dehumanize her and all of the other women. Let's tell people and convince as many people as we can that they don't have the same value as we do. They shouldn't have the same value as we do. They intrinsically are worth nothing more than their ass. That's the value that they have. And the value that they get from their ass, that's fleeting. That's finite. That doesn't last forever. In fact, that is less valuable every single year. Unlike mine. My value goes up every year. So don't you worry that pretty little head of yours, darling. Why don't you go and put on some makeup and those high heels Daddy likes and leave the thinking to me? I just want you to know, if I'm Marjorie Taylor Greene, I want to be clear here and let you know. I want to let AOC know, and I want to let all of the little girls in the world who are listening know that you might think that you could ascend those steps. That's not who you are. You're a piece of ass. Remember, the steps that you should be looking for are the steps at the nearest gentleman's club so that you can ascend those steps and go find the nearest pole to spin around. And you're going to get your value from the dollar bills that men throw on the floor as you snatch them up and count them. That's how valuable you are. Make no bones about it. That's where you belong. And she's willing to say something like that, even though it's disempowering to herself. You know, apart from all of the little girls who may be listening to her and receiving the message that she's clearly sending, along with her support clown, that she's clearly sending that says, women are valued by their ass. Look at it. Hers is juicy. That is the textbook definition of passive aggressive. They're saying it with a smile. She should be grateful. I don't understand. I just don't understand why she's not more grateful for that compliment that she got on what makes her valuable, her ass. They don't understand. You don't understand? You don't understand, Marge? I believe that Marge understands that very well. Marge used to own a gym where people went to work on their ass, which apparently to you is their most valuable asset. And you are aware of image and value that is attached to your labels. Because when you, for example, got married, you didn't change your name. You wanted to make sure that the value that you had due to your name, Marjorie Taylor, you kept that because labels mean a lot. So you are cognizant of that fact and made sure that you kept your name, Marjorie Taylor Greene, because in the town from which you come, that Taylor apparently is on a billboard someplace, so you believe that's valuable, therefore you're keeping it so that you can maintain some value because it's going to be tough. Because you're going to make a conscious decision to try and disempower and devalue yourself and women all over the world. So if that is what you're saying, as I believe it is, that the Honorable Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez finds her value and should find her value in her juicy ass. What's true for anyone is true for everyone. Therefore, you believe that all of those little girls around the world and you derive your value from that ass of yours. And if that is what you're suggesting, I suggest, Ms. Green, that you change course and fast.